In this video, I'm going to go over just basically how to start a document in Illustrator. And this is going to be for our first maps project, but a lot of this is going to be covered and used in future assignments as well. So right here is the window that usually pops up whenever you open up Illustrator, and often on your first go around of opening Illustrator, you end up with a window that pops up and asks you to sign in. In that case, what I want you to do is find where it says Use Enterprise ID, and then click on that, put in your username at seattleschools.org, and then once you go into the password, put in your school password. If it automatically redirects, like if you're on a school computer, that's fine. It's going to sign in for you, and that should only be required one time. After that, you may want to kind of change your sign in if you're going to switch to a personal thing later on, going right there. But you don't need to. We're just going to stay signed in with our school accounts. Up here, just to kind of give you a little preview, so here's our recent documents. That's where these will show up. So I have a recent document, you probably do not. We also have some kind of default sizes for different things, different presets going on. Often we're not going to use those. We're going to use one and kind of make our own sizes for things. Over here really is just a kind of Adobe's way of advertising, and so there might be right now it's go to learn. There might be something later on that you get. Okay, so here we go. We're going to create a new document, and in order to do that, we go over here to create new. This window pops up, and again, if there's recent things, if you created things recently, they'll show up here. If not, what you can actually do, we're gonna you really won't have this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna go over here to print. We're gonna make a new print document, and all the presets are kind of there for something that will be actually printed on a physical printer. Okay. Again, we have more presets, so we've got letter size, we've got A4. That's really the metric version of our letter size. We've got legal, which is just a little bit longer than our normal letter size, and then tabloid is basically it's 11 by 17, which is the same size as two letter sizes together. Okay. So we've got different sizes, but we're going to actually make our own. So we're going to come over here to our preset details, and I always like to change the name right away. That way it shows up as soon as I hit save. It's going to actually ask me to, or it's going to already have that name in there. So in this case, we're using maps, but whatever project you're using, go for it. And then, let's see, the width. You'll notice that it's actually in points, and points is used by different graphic designers, and we've got a few different options. And so points and picas are kind of a dual system, where points, there's 12 points per pica and there's 6 picas per inch, but it can be easier to evenly space things. It can be easier to define things in points and picas on a page, and so graphic designers will often do that. For us, we're going to use inches, but if we wanted to, we could also use millimeters and centimeters. And then we've also got pixels. That's going to be something that shows up on a screen. So pixels are going to be for a screen. But for us, we can actually either leave it at points or go to inches. I'm going to leave it at points just to kind of show you the next kind of cool thing, which is I'm going to switch the width for this project to 12 inches. So I'm going to type in 12, and then I'm going to type in my abbreviation for inches, which is IN. Once I click out of there and go to the height, you'll notice that it changed to 864. Now that is important because that is actually 12 times the the 72 points that are in every inch. So the computer actually converted that for you, which is great. So again, I'm going to type in 12, going to make sure that I type in IN, and what do you know, it automatically converted here. That's great. Okay, we have an option for a bleed, and what a bleed is whenever you see a page, often the printer won't go all the way around and you see like a blank margin, right? But often whenever we're designing, we actually don't want a margin. We want to have our image kind of be printed a little bit bigger, and then we can cut the actual size of the page short. And so that's how they usually do that with magazines and book covers and things like that. And so you can see that sometimes those images and the text and everything goes all the way to the outside, and that's called a bleed. We don't need to worry about that. We're just going to kind of do a quick illustration, and so we're not going to worry about that as well. There's a few other options down here that I'll talk about, but we don't need to make any changes. The first one is color mode. Since this is going to be something that could be printed, we're going to be in CMYK. That's cyan, magenta, yellow, and key. That's our black color, and for some reason they decided to call it key instead. And then we also have a few different options if we want. I guess just RGB, and that's going to be for screens. So if you're designing something to be seen specifically on a screen, you'll often use RGB. That's red, green, and blue. But we're going to use the CMYK color because we're designing things for print. We also want to have for our raster effects, that's basically saying what is our resolution, and we're going to make that high. We're going to make that 300. So if we're going to print, we're going to want to have 300 points per inch, or 300 DPI, which is dots per inch. Dots has to do with printing. Points or pixels have to do with screens. They're interchangeable for what we're going to talk about. But if you have something you want to print it and you don't want it to look pixelated, you want to have that kind of magic number of 300. If it's on a screen, interestingly enough, you need a lot less resolution in order to look clear, and so 72 points per inch is good if we're designing specifically for a screen, and that's okay. It makes a smaller file, so it travels through the internet a little bit easier, but we don't need to worry about that. We're just going to keep it at that, and then we're going to keep the default preview mode right there. There's more settings. We'll get into them as we need them, but I just wanted to kind of go through everything and show you everything going on here. We're ready. We've got our 12 inch by 12 inch or 864 pixel points by 864 points document. Gonna hit go. All right, and here we go. We've got our artboard right here. Generally when you start, you're going to actually have yours look like this, and this is our workspace right here, and we have a few different options. We've got our toolbar on the left here, we've got our menus going on here, our top level menus going on, like file, edit, that you'll see in most different things. If you're on a Mac, that's probably going to be way up top and not attached to the window, but if you're on a Windows machine, it's going to be that top part of your window. So it might look different if you're on a Mac, but it's there. It's just in a different spot. Over here we have different kind of advanced toolbars, and so we can actually change things. One thing that's interesting is if we were to, like let's say for example, I have this shape right here, my properties are going to change based on that. So if I'm not selecting it, it will, not selecting anything, it's going to look at the entire document and give me options for the entire document. If I'm selecting one individual object, it's going to give me options for that individual object. Okay? And then we also have different tabs within those advanced toolbars. Okay? For me, I kind of like a few more options going on the screen. So in this case, I'm actually going to switch my Essentials to my Essentials Classic. And this has a few more options. It brings them a little bit closer to where I can see them, where I can actually just click on them fairly quickly, but it still keeps it pretty clean. If you want to, you can actually go into Window, and here's a bunch of toolbars right here that you can go into and use, and I'll show you as we go along which ones we might actually need to use and which ones we don't need to worry about most of the time. Okay. Now you can see there's few more toolbars. So right here, a big one is this one. This is our layers tools. And we're going to be using this quite a bit in this class. So here we go. We've got our document. It's all set up. It's ready for our next thing. And I'll show that in the next video.